New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again. But if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Many of us digging up from a heck of a storm that blew through most of the east there, from Texas all the way up to Maine. Certainly our thoughts are with those that got nailed by just a terrible ice storm in the south. Good luck to you folks, and hoping you guys can get back online as soon as possible. We're going to get into this week's headlines here. Our lead story comes from yours truly. We're going to cover the potential of New Hampshire citizens getting to vote on the right to hunt and fish and amend the New Hampshire state constitution. We'll get into more of that here in a moment. Other headlines from across the nation. Natural Resources Committee advances important fisheries bill. Early legislative action signals busy year for sportsmen in the Great Plains. Bill to unnecessarily limit opportunities for sportsmen and women has been introduced in Mississippi. Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation serves as a sole voice for sportsmen at the Explore Act oversight hearing. The Westervelt Company joins CSF's Forestry Advisory Council. And finally, we wrap things up in Washington as sportsmen and women converge in Washington for a day of advocacy and education. We'll get into that, tease out our feature presentation coming to you tomorrow. But let us get into the lead story here. Speaking of teases, I teased this out last week on the show, if you were listening, as we were talking about Delaware also having the opportunity to enshrine the constitutional right to hunt and fish in their state constitution. Different processes between the two states, where Delaware can simply do this legislatively to get that done. We in New Hampshire got a bit more of a hill to climb. But let's talk about it. So it's widely known that we all have deep-rooted heritages in most of our states. That hunting, fishing, trapping, all of this has been handed down from generations. Some generations more predominantly than others, especially right now in 2026 as baby boomers age out, late Gen Xers to the 1979, 1980 category Gen Xers, of which I find myself in, are kind of in our peak, if you will, of middle age and advancing, and then the younger generations picking up that mantle. What does that look like? It has precipitously dropped off each generation, millennials, Zoomers, Alpha, wherever it's at. So it obviously presents a problem with the participation, and where states do not have this enshrined, it is and could be on the chopping block. We know it is on the chopping block in the West, specifically Oregon, with their efforts to outlaw all consumptive use of any animals, which is just wild to me. But here in New Hampshire, people look at this state and like, wow, hunting, fishing, that all seems reasonable. It's got to be safe. I thought you already had the right to hunt and fish and trap and do other things. We do, as far as statute goes. But as most people who tune into this show know, statute's only as strong as people's willingness not to recall it and not to get rid of it. That's a far simpler process than amending a state constitution. And that is designed that way on purpose. We want these things. We're going to do it to mean something and make it important. So we talk about the drop off, the funding mechanism that we talk about at least once. We touch on it weekly here on the show. Is that user pays public benefits model in the American system of conservation funding. That is, those license sales get matched at the federal level from Pittman Robinson, from Dinkle Johnson, Wallet Bro. That's the mission delivery mechanism. That money, that revenue goes to paying for boots on the ground, for biologists, for wildlife managers, admin staff, all to execute what the New Hampshire Fish and Game is charged with. New Hampshire Fish and Game doesn't draw from the general fund. Those license sales and those matches sustain that agency and allow them to do what they do, and they're very good at it. So as these threats from in-state as well as out-of-state deep-pocketed anti-hunters especially roll into the state to fund these forever wars on the conservation sporting community, getting this done and giving it to the voters in November to vote on and hopefully pass would certainly push those efforts away, deter them. It would take a concerted effort to fund a campaign to amend the state constitution again to undo this, right? So I want to kind of touch on what the bill doesn't do and dispel some myths, because we've held 2 listening sessions here in the state with agency folks, legislators, state partners, critter groups coming to the table, forestry, land managers, landowners, organizations, farmers. All have questions, all want to know how this would play out. So, a quick punch list here I'd like to go through and help people understand what's at hand here. So, first thing you always hear, if we do get this on the ballot and the citizens of New Hampshire say, yeah, this should be done, and we get that constitutional amendment, most people want to know, well, won't this just open hunting? Specifically, they're concerned about hunting, but hunting and fishing and trapping, 24/7, 365, whack 'em and stack 'em. It's just a giant killing fest, and now we're getting no, 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 no. All season rules, regulations, and statute concerning New Hampshire Fish and Game, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission's rulemaking authority, private property rights, and trespassing laws stay the same. Nothing changes. I'm going to be repetitive in this. Nothing changes except we are now guaranteed the right in perpetuity and for generations to come. Again, citing the falling numbers of participation, this is vitally important. This bill, I should have started off, should be known as CACR 15. That's the one we're talking about. And this will be heard. So in real time, as we're dropping this on January 28th, a few days from now, on February 3rd, barring another crazy snowstorm doesn't mess us up here, February 3rd in Representatives Hall at the New Hampshire State Capitol, we're going to hear this CR 15, and we're going to be able to voice our opinions. Regular folks, I'm telling you, take the day off, spend half a day, and do your due diligence and get up here and have your voice heard. Oral testimony, written testimony, CSF, through me, we will be there on the ground making sure our voice is heard on behalf of so many. Back to the punch list here. Would CACR 15 void private property rights and trespass laws? No. Nope. You can already that is a thing. Nothing changes about that. The RSA 635 Section 4, landowners are allowed to post their property and exclude others. Absolutely nothing changes about that. You were not guaranteed the right to access private property. under the guaranteed right hunt and fish in use of traditional methods. Nowhere in that does it say I can go trample on someone's property. Doesn't exist. Wouldn't exist. Continue on. Would the passage legalize poaching? No. Why would it legalize poaching? This goes back to the initial question, 365, 24/7. No. All laws enforced by the New Hampshire Fish and Game Law Enforcement Division remain intact, with conservation officers able to execute their mission and process criminals and criminal offenses. Nothing changes. There's a trend here. Stay with me. Could traditional methods mean anything? No. Again, see trends. No, traditional methods is what's legal, legal means of take at the time of passage. So big hang up here from the anti-hunters and animal rights crazies is trapping. They are just can't get out of their own way on trapping, despite the myth busting, despite the wildlife professionals at New Hampshire Fish and Game coming out talking about the virtues of trapping, what it has done for non-game species, threatened species, what it has done for bobcat populations, what it is currently doing to help understand the decline of fisher in this state, amongst others. They can't get trapping out of their heads. So not only do traditional methods encompass trapping, your houndsman, archery, baiting rules, these are all traditional methods of take. That's what we're talking about. This is kind of we can't isolate all of these things to include trapping. So this is the legal language that has been scrutinized and done in almost 24 states. Not every state adopts this. I can think maybe Arkansas, perhaps. I think I'll follow up with you. Well, a few of these states have left trapping specifically, but this overall language encompasses all of those, which is vitally important as houndsmen, especially when it comes to bear hounding, is always under attack in the region, but New Hampshire specifically in this instance, baiting as well. So we want to be able to continue to do these things. And oh, by the way, the authority to regulate all this still remains with the New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission. They set all this up, stuff's presented to them. They take a vote to advance, and then if something needs a legislative process to become available, that happens. So none of that goes away with this. If anything, this is a strong point for the New Hampshire Fish and Game, which is constantly under attack, either trying to circumvent their authority by turning them into an advisory board only, by trying to subvert the board by putting obstructionists and anti-hunters on that, to changing the requirements to allow more of those obstructionists onto the commission. This should set those concerns at ease, especially with our commissioners. Oh, by the way, New Hampshire Fish and Game supports this. The commission has come out and gave thumbs up on CA CR 15. Another item that has got the antis in a tizzy, and I liken this to what just happened in Florida with Amendment 2, and we got that passed in the 24 election cycle. The antis were all freaking out about bear season coming back. Well, that had a process, so it did not guarantee a bear season would come back. In that same respect, there are those in New Hampshire that do not want to see a bobcat season come back, despite populations continue to rise since 10 years ago when we tried to bring this very modest season that combined trapping and standard hunting efforts for 50 cats out of the entire state. Fast forward 10 years, there's bobcats everywhere. Wildlife managers would tell you, fur bear biologists would tell you, there's a sustainable population. This issue is not about bobcats. It is merely an example of a concern. So to answer that question, would CACR 15 bring back a bobcat season? Absolutely not. Would not happen, cannot happen by this constitutional amendment. There is a process to bring a bobcat season back. And if New Hampshire Fish and Game decides they want to go through that iteration like we did 10 years ago, hats off to them. I fully support it. CSF would support that effort, especially if the science on the ground bears out that such a season should come back to manage that renewable resource. And it would. Again, not to get on the side about bobcats. So to set those people's nerves and minds at ease, no, this amendment rather, would not bring a bobcat season about without going through the proper standard process. What does it do? We kind of already covered it. It only codifies New Hampshire citizens' ability to hunt, fish, take wildlife by traditional methods. It will establish a funding mechanism in perpetuity so that we don't run out of those needed revenue, those dollars being matched at the federal level. Those dollars have a ripple effect. They fund game management. They fund non-game management. They fund threatened species management. They contribute to habitat restoration. They contribute to clean waterways, fisheries, working against invasives. We have a great population of backcountry trout fishermen in this state. People come from all over. It helps with that fishery staying intact, maintaining those waterways so that people can have a very pure experience. These fly fishing only places you've got to really hike to get into to have this wonderful experience. Maintains docks, access for boaters, access for water skiers, wakeboarders, pontoon pleasurists just going out there for a mid-evening ride or a midnight cruise. It does a whole lot more that so many New Hampshire residents enjoy, so many non-residents and visitors from around the world that come to the Granite State and contribute heavily to those ecotourism dollars that our economy is set up around. In part, it's a huge driver. All on the back of a few. A bit more than 232,000 people are contributing in this and making this all work out of a population about 1.8 million people. Folks, that's less than some of your cities, people that are listening to this right now. Our entire state, 1.8 million. That's why this is important. That's why people need to show up on February 3rd in Concord, New Hampshire, for people that live in this area. Have your voice heard. Show up at noon, maybe a little bit before noon, so you can find a parking spot. This bill is scheduled to be heard at 12:45. Be there. Have your butt in a seat. Submit your little pink card to talk. I would encourage you to utilize our Action Alert portal that we will have sent out by the time you hear this. You can edit that field so it's not just the message that's in there. You can tailor that to your thoughts. Submit that. That will go straight to the committee members on the House Fish and Game and Marine Resources Committee. It's very specific, tailored system. It's important for these people on that committee to hear you, to hear your voice. It must be loud and resoundingly in favor of this to help move this along. There are individual legislators that would like to see this die. And that simply cannot happen. That would be unacceptable. As the title of the article reads, this is a once in a generation opportunity for Granite Staters, and we must treat it as such. We must and need to advance this legislation, get it passed. The Senate is in favor of this. The governor's office, though they don't really have a hand in this, the way the process works, they are also supportive of this. So the House members need to hear from our constituents, from our community loudly, respectfully on this issue and get this passed. I've gone way over than I anticipated on this, but it is a very important issue, and I can't stress it enough. So we will follow up. We'll have additional reporting. Hopefully, next steps are positive steps, and we continue to go. And then we're initiating a campaign throughout the summer as we look towards an opportunity in November. Ideally, that's how this goes. All right, continuing on. Mention Natural Resources Committee advanced important fisheries bill last week. Congress advanced 2 priority bills for CSF that would benefit anglers, though in very different ways. NOAA has jurisdiction authority of our national marine fisheries resources from the limit of state or territorial sea, typically 3 to 9 miles offshore, out to 200-mile limit of the exclusive economic impact zone. A lot of water, a lot of rules. The Modernizing Access to Our Public Oceans Act, MAP Oceans Act, will provide much needed clarity for those rules. The other piece of legislation that we're talking about, the Mitigation Action and Waterman Support Act of 2025, creates an innovative pilot program to facilitate a commercial market for the highly invasive and problematic blue catfish in the Chesapeake Bay. I think we're talking about dog food, pet food, the use of that. I'm not sure if people eat them. I imagine people eat them. So anyway, 2 bills there. You can go read about that. Some more that reporting coming from Chris Horton on that one. Great Plains is has a busy legislative year ahead of them. 2026 session is off to a hot start with legislation that is impacting sportsmen and women. I could say that for most of the areas. We are burning, baby. Let's see here from Jake Gould, a handful of bills. Senate Joint Resolution 7 is a proposed constitutional amendment for the right to hunt and fish in Iowa's constitution. So great. Now we're up to 3 this session alone. House File 536 would create firearm hunting and wildlife curriculum for students in 6th through 8th grade, which is a policy priority for CSF. That's great news. Also doing that in New Hampshire currently. South Dakota House Bill 1037 would provide a free fishing license for residents, active duty, and veterans of the United States Armed Forces. This session, CSF will continue to track and engage on legislation that stands to impact sportsmen and women. That free license, certainly active duty and vets are deserving of that. Just got to make sure there's a way to fund that. You guys that have tuned in before, you're well aware of the position on that and how to navigate. Next up, bill to unnecessarily limit opportunities for sportsmen and women introduced in Mississippi. CSF will continue to work with the Mississippi Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and our partners to defend access for sportsmen and women and to oppose House Bill 828. It aims to outlaw the use of thermal optics, suppressors, and night vision, limit the use of hunting dogs on private property, and completely eliminate it on public lands. Require Mississippians to obtain a depredation permit to be able to remove any nuisance animals and more. I gotta imagine that first bunch is going to make it real hard to manage feral hogs, especially in that part of the country. You know, those pigs cause over $2.5 billion in damage every year throughout the states where they're at, and their population continues to grow in Mississippi. The cans, again, we go back to some prior conversations in our features, especially coming from NASC with American Suppressor Associations, Knox Williams. They're hearing protection, man. That people got to get this out of their head. They just like the right to hunt and fish bill. Nothing happens. You're not going to all of a sudden have a bunch of poachers out there. There's already poachers out there. They're the poachers. They're going to poach until they get caught. The ability to use hearing protection is not going to go to the standard sportsman or woman like those of us that are on this show right now and be like, oh hey, I can go shoot stuff quietly. Think I'll go kill some stuff after dark. No, it's not in our ethos. It doesn't compute with us, right? Criminals are going to be criminals. This doesn't matter. So we will keep up with Mark Lance's reporting on that bill and certainly wanting to oppose that. A follow-up on, we covered an article last week. There was breaking news. Our senior vice president, Taylor Schmitz, was the lone representatives for the sporting community testifying on the Explore Act in an oversight hearing, really trying to implement parts of those. That bill was already passed last year, and a lot of that focused on access to shooting ranges and getting that part of the program going. So I invite you to go back, check out the socials. You hear directly from Taylor. Taylor also came on the program last Wednesday to talk about the hearing, so check that out. Westerville Company joined CSS Forestry Advisory Council. The addition of the Westerville Company to CSS Forest Advisory Council further aligns a forest industry leader in wildlife management with other organizations dedicated to promoting sportsmen's access and heritage, wildlife conservation, and sustainable forest management to support CSF's advocacy and strong forest policies that benefit the forest industry and the hunting conservation community. Like that reporting coming from Forestry Director John Colclaser. You can check that article out as well. And finally, sportsmen and women converge in Washington for a day of advocacy and education. Last week, CSF provided testimony on Senate Bill 5960 before the Senate National Natural Resources Committee, supporting the bill's efforts to restore healthy ungulate populations while also requesting amendments to align the bill with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife science-based management plans and the North American model wildlife conservation. You check all those articles out in depth. Use the in-article links. Check out, do a little deeper dive on these subjects by going to congressionalsportsman.org, congressionalsportsman.org. There, you can sign up for the free newsletter. It is free. Just put in your information, your email. You get that every Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern or the next day if there is a holiday or an unforeseen shutdown on a Monday. That's the show this week. Tune in. Get my schedule back up here. Tomorrow for our feature edition of the Sportsman's Voice, where we will hear from Senior Vice President of CSF, Taylor Schmitz, and our friends at Delta Waterfowl, John Devney, Cyrus Baird, talking about public lands, refuges. This was a conversation we captured at the NAS Summit, still very relevant as we sit here at the end of January. So I do invite you to tune in. Great conversation there with those three folks. And you guys will have that tomorrow. That'll do it. Next week, same format. We still have 3 more shows from our NAS conversations. So 3 more weeks of back to back to back. And then we will return to regularly scheduled programming that the audience is used to every other Thursday on the features. And you can count on us every week to bring you a Roundup conservation news from across the nation. Thanks as always for tuning in, folks. We appreciate it. 5 stars, follow, subscribe, all of that where you can. Please do it. It helps us move up in that algorithm to get discovered. New audiences find us and get this important work and information as a resource. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you tomorrow. So long.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.